What's going on, guys? Alpine Gremlin again here with some more World of Tanks. Now, today we are not watching me play. This is one of my buddies and a subscriber, Jim Two Dimensional. Jim is well, he's definitely a newer, less experienced player to World of Tanks, and someone that is steadily getting better at the game. He's one of those players that is still in that adjustment phase, where he's learning about all the little intricacies of the tanks, all the little intricacies of the spotting mechanics, and how combat is. And today he's going to be showing us some E-75 gameplay. Now, spoiler alert, he does lose this game, but he does put out some decent damage in this Tier 10 game. He's in his E-75 Tier 9 German heavy tank. And he asked me, I've got this replay, can you please take a look at it? And so I figured, why not just make a video of it in general, because maybe it could help more than just him. And I'm thinking about maybe doing this regularly, as, maybe a thing where I look at the replays of the less experienced players and point out some things that I think they might have been able to do better, because that's explicitly what Jim wanted. He wanted me to kind of critique this. So let's get into it. He's brought the E-75 down to the south on Arctic region. This is, typical medium tank location. Heavy tank location. It's where all of the heavies go, because there's a lot of cover from artillery. It's a corridor, so that's what heavies like. They like that direct face-to-face combat. And Jim is definitely going to be putting the armor and the good alpha damage of the E-75 to use, because even at Tier 10, this is a very competitive and strong heavy tank. Jim puts a solid hit into the little flat part of the upper part of the M103's turret, who thinks he's safe in that position, but he's really not he's not really in as good of a position as he thinks. He is showing a lot of the flat top of his turret at that angle. So Jim's kind of just creeping up here. He's being wary of everything around him. Takes another shot at the M103. They have a mutual ricochet. And so you see the Scorpion foolishly passing in front of all the guns, but unfortunately Jim just isn't loaded. He took that shot at that M103. The DPM of the E-75 is certainly nothing to write home about. And this is an interesting part about this part of the map, right? This has been changed drastically since in recent patches. That whole lower part never even used to exist. It was just this. It was this route or bust, or you go somewhere else. And so, I was keeping an eye on these guys down here. And it's there's a few points where Jim does show that he's very, very aware of what's going on down there. But I also, at the same time, right, there is a lot of friendly tanks here. Even the Skoda T50. A medium tank has come down here. There's a Scorpion, 2 Scorpions over there, or 1 Scorpion, a T10. A good portion of their team is here, and so this flank is pretty much at a stalemate right now. However, the situation is not that simple, because if you look up north, as someone on the map, someone has already pinged the map. We've got at least 3 enemy tanks coming from the AB lines in the north. The IS-3, the T-32, and the Tier 9 Batshat are all pushing that flank. They're also supported by a Scorpion over here who's set up in a good position to cover this approach. So, keeping an eye on the map, the situation is a little bit more dire than these guys really realize right now. So Jim puts a good hit into that T110E3, who showed a little bit too much side coming out, and so this is heavy tank gameplay on this map. You just gotta conserve as much health as possible. Now the Jim's doing good. He's not being too aggressive right now, which is understandable. Not with an E100, a Jaegeru, and an E3 over there. You definitely don't want to be pushing in a Tier 9 heavy against those kinds of opponents. Looking for a shot on the Scorpion G, but the Centurion offers a more enticing target, puts a solid hit into him, and the Centurion is out. Unfortunately, putting a shot into that Cent means that he's not going to get the current shot on this E3, but he has been tracked, foolishly going out into the open. A platoon mate puts a shot into him, and Jim finishes him off, putting it right into that front road wheel. But I just want to take, I want to take a moment now. We need to reassess the situation still, right? So the T-49 has showed up north, and the T-32 and the IS-3, as well as probably the Batshat, he still hasn't been lit yet. But I think this is, Jim's first kind of mistake. Now, I'm going to talk obviously about the team performance as a whole, but Jim really wanted me to critique his decision making specifically. So I'm going to focus primarily on the things that Jim could have done better. The first thing that I think should have happened here is you should have looked at what you had around you, right? You see all these tanks here. This flank probably is not going to fall anytime soon. You have so many tanks here, and these guys are basically biding their time. They know that they've got those guys up north. They're just keeping you guys here long enough to where these guys can get around and encircle you, and at that point, that is GG. So the first mistake that I think you made in the tactical situation here is you didn't go back. This is the point where I think you should have headed back to support your allies with the cap, because you're an E-75. Those are only tier 8 and 9 vehicles. I mean, you could easily hold those heavy tanks off, and I think if you had gone up there and had fought that flank off, helped prevent that from getting on the cap and all that, I think you would have lessened the stress on your team. But I think you got a little bit too fixated on the targets in front of you, and you weren't paying as much attention to the map as possible. And so that's going to leave. And even see, I noticed that you looked back there, so you know what's going on, I think. But I think maybe you're too worried to leave the team here. But I definitely think you should have gone back by this point. Now, another thing that I noticed as you're looking for shots on these tanks here, right, is I need you to look at the situation down on your. This is the stage now where I think you need your attention kind of needed to shift a little bit, right? The situation on your left flank is not that great anymore. The VK-4502B just got killed. That T-57 Heavy over there, and pay attention to him because he's a very good player, and I think he is definitely one of the players that bites Jim in the ass here, literally. But so we'll keep an eye out on that left flank and the situation there. This whole as Jim is fighting these guys over here. They just killed the Scorpion G, and Jim's looking for the shot on this E-100, but he pulls back. Now I do notice you are panning Jim is panning the camera, so he does notice. But just look at that. Look at that. How much damage that T-57 Heavy is wreaking on the team. He just killed the 4502B. He just killed the T-30. I believe he killed the IS-7 as well. And you could see that guy. The T-10 is going back to respond to him. The Scorpion G has just killed the Lova. But the Skoda goes back and kills the Scorpion. Now those two guys have the situation pretty well in hand, or so it would appear, but that 57 is loaded. He kills the Scorpion. He puts one shot into the T-10. Now the T-57 is now reloading, right? And the T-10 goes down in there, puts a shot into him. But I think right at this point, Jim, this is the point where you needed to change your strategy. I think this was another critical moment that I think you could have drastically improved the tactical situation for the team. Right, this is an E3 right here. I don't think he would have had much trouble holding off these two E100s. I think at this point, at the very latest, you should have switched your attention to that T-57 Heavy, because he needs to die right now. this, like, he has 484 health left. If he kills that T10, there's going to be nothing from stopping him, nothing to stop him from basically chewing you and the E3 up from behind. Very dangerous player and a very dangerous tank. He needs to get he needs to die. But I think he got a little bit too focused on these two Jagdpanzer, on the Jagdpanzer and the E100 in front of you. Good shot into the E100's turret. You're using the APCR, so that's definitely something worth mentioning. Now, see, you looked back there again, so I know you're definitely thinking the right thing. You know, you see him back there, you know what has to be, you know that he's there and is going to be coming up behind you. But I definitely think even now you could have easily gone over there and left. You know, that's just the E100. You took a good shot, took out the Jagdpanzer E100. But I think that your decision to push the E100 rather than going back and dealing with the T-57 Heavy really bites you in the ass, and you're going to see why. Now it's just you and the E3 left, and now this is where your previous decision not to go back and deal with the guys to the north also kind of bites you as well, because now you've got two additional tanks up north that are going to have shots on you as you try to fight this E100. So you're going to be taking shots from the E100 to your front, these two guys to the IS-3 and the T-32 to your north, and then that 57 Heavy that you didn't kill is going to be able to have free reign over you and is going to be able to come up behind you. So you can see now the T-57 Heavy is now back and is reloaded. And you're going to see now that 57 is able to put 1, 2, hit your ammo, 3, dumps basically three-fourths of his magazine into you there. So that's not only stripped your health significantly, but now you're stuck between the guys up north, this E100, and a 57. You kill the 57. You kill the E100, but you get shot in the ass from the T-32 up north. And now at this point, it's just the T-110E3, and he gets killed by artillery. So you put out 4,000 damage. We're gonna look at the after action report. You put out 4,000 damage, which is solid damage for a tier 9 heavy tank in a tier 10 game. And I realized that, you know, the team as a whole, you had all of those tanks down south, and they all just kind of sat behind you. And Jim was definitely pushing the tempo. He was the one that was doing a lot of the. If you notice, he was moving up a lot, because I think he realized that, you know, something's got to happen on this flank. But your team didn't really buy it. So, like I said, you know, obviously the biggest reason why you lost this is because the team as a whole just didn't really pull their weight. But I think there were a lot of things that you could have done in order to carry this game. I think you should have gone back north in order to defend the base, because that would have taken away an entire group of enemies that would have you would have freed up your encirclement. You would have basically broken out. You might have even been able to flank the enemies that were in the south. But even though you didn't do that, I think that even if you hadn't done that, I think that killing that 57 Heavy when you had the chance would have improved your chances of survival even more. Because even if that 57 went down, you wouldn't have had to worry about him. You wouldn't have lost, you wouldn't have lost over half your health to him dumping his entire magazine into you. And so you would have been in a much better position to deal with that E100, and then it would have just been artillery and two tier 8s, and I think you would have gotten even more kills and damage if you had just dealt with that 57. So anyway, let's take a look at the after action report. All right, so here's the after action report for that game. Now, like I said, it wasn't the damage done that is why you lost. I think you did very good damage. You easily, by far, out-damaged the tier 10s on your team. your tier 10s honestly didn't do anything. That was worth something. I mean, when you got a Jagdpanzer E-100 that does 0 damage, that sucks. So you easily got the most, out damaged and got the most experience. You killed 3 tanks. You absorbed 1,550 damage worth of shots, but the problem was not the damage done or the damage blocked. It was it was just decision making with respect to the tactical situation, where you had to you didn't respond to several things, which I think if you had responded to at least one of them, the game would have A, been a lot closer, B, you would have done even more damage, and might have even won. So I think the 2 big things that I think you did wrong in this game is you didn't respond up north when you should have. You didn't push out of that north and killed those 2 heavies and the support they had with them, which you could have easily done in an E-75. And I also think that even if you hadn't done that, I think killing that T-57 heavy would have possibly even secured the win, because if you had killed that 57 when you had the chance, when he was reloading, you wouldn't have lost over half your health to him. You would have been able to finish off that E-100, and then it would have just been you in the E-100 against a couple tier 8s and artillery, and I think that would have been a victory. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed this commentary, and Jim, I hope the critiques that I have help you, because I know you wanted it to get critiqued. So you made some good plays, you did good damage, but I think there's some things you could have done better that would have definitely allowed you to turn that to your favor again. So yeah, good game. Thanks for sending it, and guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.